What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Piley Studios. Who is as excited as I am about the Diglett Pokemon dioramas that me and my daughter are going to begin building? Now, I've already posted technically a part 1 in this series where I'm asking the question, is the Diglett Pokemon a worm or is it a mole? Now, you can go back and reference that video. I will link it below. And as I finish out this series, I'll go back to all of the previous videos and I will post all of the links for all of the segments of these videos in the description. We're going to actually build 3 dioramas. In the description that I had described in the first video where I'm talking about how design ideas, how I like to create it, skin texture and things like that, I described a few different ways, and we're actually going to run through quite a few of these. The very first one we're going to do is, what if Diglett was a worm? Not just a worm or the cartoon version, but an actual realistic worm. So we're going to actually sculpt Diglett as a physical earth worm. It's going to look wonky, it's going to look a little squelchy, but we're going to see how it turns out. So the very first video of this is going to be the actual, is Diglett a worm or a mole? Video number 2 is where we're going to actually create Diglett as a worm. Video number 3 is going to be where we're going to be painting and epoxying that actual earthworm Diglett. And video number 4 is where we're going to be creating an actual cartoon version of Diglett. And that's the one that most people are actually familiar with. During some of these other processes of designing these other out-of-the-box type of Digletts, more realistic, weird versions that I have in my head, my daughter continuously comes back at me and says, that doesn't look like a Pokemon Diglett, Dad. So she hassled me for quite a while. So we're going to actually create a cartoon version as well. And that will also allow me to engage her in the creation, the clay, and having fun with the painting. So that will be video number 4. Video number 5 is where we'll be detail painting that. Video number 6 in this is going to be a little bit of a turn. If you think of Diglett as a mole with maybe just below the grade of the dirt, little hands or little claws, because he does have the scratch effect, which I mentioned in video number 1. I'm going to create him in just a wonky, creepy, weird mole version where he's going to have some claws that come out from underneath the folds of his wrinkly, kind of like a naked mole rat type of skin. He's going to have like little beady eyes and little ports for his ears. So it's just going to be really creepy, a little weird. I'm going to make him look really like kind of paled out compared to his usually brown. I want to make each color tone a little bit different. Maybe the earthworm will be slightly maybe darker. The cartoon version will be more of a little bit more of a red tinge, perhaps earth color, maybe a red dirt color. And then I want the earth, the mole version to be more of a paled out, like a raw sienna type of look. So we'll see how it goes. Each one of these will include its own actual mole hole base that it sits into. I'm going to sculpt each one of them individually in different ways, and I want to sculpt them so they look differently as well. That will be the final video in the series, and then I'll do like a little showcase of all of the 3 in a line or something just fun for them to be all kind of collected together. So this is going to be quite a long series in the actual Diglett Pokemon release. Of course, I could just do the cartoon version, but we're actually going to just create just an entire little series out of it. And then once I get these knocked out and I have these videos sitting there waiting to be uploaded over time, maybe weekly perhaps, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and start the next Pokemon, which will take a poll on TikTok. So if you don't follow me on TikTok, make sure you do so. Make sure you hit the subscribe button here. Let's go ahead and roll into video number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, whichever you're watching, because I may use this little clip over and over again because it gives such a good description of the overall series. But otherwise, if you skip this, that's okay too. Let's get into the content. Alright, so let's jump straight into the content, guys. Now, I have purchased this tumbler actually at Walmart. I haven't been able to find a whole lot of 15 ounces that I like, and I really do like using the 15 ounces for medium-sized projects of this nature. And I really wanted to use a tumbler just because it's kind of a cylinder shape in general, and I'm just using different tumbler sizes for each individual Diglett. So you've seen 2 of them already. We've already done the worm, we've already done the cartoon version, and now we're going to do the mole version. Now this is going to be kind of wonky. It's going to have a lot more detail than the other ones have, and this is just straight out of my head. I'm just having fun with the process. The whole goal of this this build here is to make it just very wrinkly, very saggy looking skin. I want him to have the actual Diglett nose, but it's going to be blended in. He's also going to have potentially pouches around his arms, because I do want to actually sculpt him some little arms and feet and paws and claws. I do want those claws to be very prominent because I want him to look like a mole. So I've completely covered this in a Sculpey Original from top to bottom, and that includes the very bottom of the actual tumbler itself. And now I'm just layering in actual wrinkles around the body, and I'm kind of bringing those out from the kind of main wrinkle that I'm bringing down below his nose there. And I'm doing that because I want to create, like I mentioned in video number 1, where I'm kind of describing my overall design processes, that I wanted to create kind of like a mixture between a mole rat, maybe a naked mole rat, or a worm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give him a ripply worm texture belly. It almost looks like a little bit of an armor type of texture, but I'm really glad that I'm able to kind of introduce just some different textures and different shapes into his body, and it kind of just breaks up the whole wrinkliness of it. So we're just going to continuously work in these little wrinkles here. Some of them will be quite larger than others, and I'm kind of keeping those large in some ways and some reasons, because I had to apply a slightly larger wrinkle to the very top of what his body is now, and that's because when I do the topper that goes on the very top of the actual acrylic lid, then it has a kind of a ridge on the back of that lid, and I want to make sure that I'm able to cover that in an efficient manner to where it kind of blends well and you don't see that cup through or underneath the topper when we're done. So that just requires us to have a little bit more meat around the top of the tumbler. Here I am, I'm just going to kind of slowly add clay in, kind of creating that belly worm rib texture there, and I'm just going to blend that in before we continue on with the overall wrinkles. Continuing the wrinkles all the way around the back, and I'll gradually kind of introduce those into kind of like eyebrow shapes above the actual eyes. Now you also notice that I just laid the tool at the very top of the lid there, or the rim, and that's just giving me a ballpark idea where the ears need to be to kind of line up in a good way. They don't have to be absolutely perfect, but if you're rotating the cup in any way, you just kind of want to feel like they're in the right spaces. With so many wrinkles around his body, if things kind of shift, because that's just literally skin around where the ear would be, kind of like how a mole rat might be, then it's no big deal. I'm adding a little bit of a cheekbone there. I just felt like it was too flat. It was too just boring. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a smooth cheek jawbone there, just below the eye. And then I'm going to continuously work in and kind of shadow those wrinkles in around the belly. So this is just generally a relaxing process. I did this probably over a matter of a week or so while I was working on some other cups and projects. One of those being the actual Pumpkin King. I was working on his topper and painting him out in acrylics as well. But very fun to be able to do this on a side project. So here I am, I'm just carving away a little bit of what a mouth would possibly look like. I'm not going to include any teeth or any lips or mouth portions on this build, but if you kind of lean them over, I will probably darken out that a little bit just so there's a recess there. I do like how the belly is turning out, but I just felt like I needed to expand those kind of worm texture ribs out quite a bit. So I went ahead and cut that away, some of those wrinkles away, and I expanded those out to meet the vertical wrinkles that are going up the body. And as I go through later processes, those vertical wrinkles will evolve a little bit, and you can kind of see where I was going with that. Adding more wrinkles to the back of the body there, and this is a lot of wrinkles here, so we'll start to come in here in a little bit and we'll separate some of these out, texture them, and just kind of make them individual, thin them out some, because these are pretty large overall and I don't want them to be that thick. So we're just going to slowly just take away lines of clay in between some of these larger wrinkles, and then it kind of just separates those wrinkles out into more and more wrinkles. Wrinkles all around for everybody. So I'm really happy with how it's turned out so far. I just feel like he has a lot of character. He obviously doesn't look exactly like a Diglett, but he does have some of the general characteristics, I would say. The eye, the nose. But of course everything else is just imagination and just something fun. Just to add some details and characteristics to the overall sculpture so that maybe, hey, you can kind of think of it as a Diglett if you're looking at it. But otherwise, I'm hoping that you'll kind of think of it as a mole or a rat. And then, of course, I'll label it a Diglett, and that's what it is, right? So now we're going to begin the idea of sculpting out some little paws or mittens that are kind of going to just bring some character to the front of the build there. So what I did is I kind of rounded off two medium-sized pieces of clay here. They're roughly the same shape, and I kind of curved those. And as you can see, I'm also going to lay out some little, well, not teeth, but some claws. And each one will include a little piece of armature wire, and then I'll actually create a small divot or hole in the end of each kind of little finger, and those will slide into one another. And I'll kind of probably use a white E6000 to glue those into place before I finish up the build. Kind of like mid paint, I'll probably get those in. So you will see that in the next video. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of speeding through. I'm separating out each individual finger. I'm just going to make 4 overall. There is no thumbs involved in this. And I want these to look like he would just literally be using these to kind of like scoop and move soil out of his way, whether that be a forward motion or a through the ground motion. So they're kind of curved downward a little bit. And that just kind of gives us a little bit more control over the way that they're looking. You know, I want them to look like he scoops and pushes the dirt out of his way as he burrows through the ground. I also went ahead and introduced a few, just kind of like an armor texture. A lot of voles and moles have this really rough brown texture on the back of their hands. I'm sure some expert out there will be able to tell us exactly what those are called, but they almost look like little calluses to me. And for me looking at those reference photos, I was thinking to myself, well, if he were burrowing through the ground all the time, the friction or, you know, the abrasive nature of dirt would kind of cause them to generally have really rough texture on the back of their claws or their fingers and their paws, so that way they have a little bit more protection there as they're scooping dirt away. Maybe if they hit a rock or something, then that doesn't hurt them. So that's where I'm going for with that, and I'm going to probably texture that with acrylics in a lot darker color, whereas the overall paw tone will probably be more of a paled out white or raw sienna maybe. So what we're doing here is this is where I'm just actually cutting those pieces away. Now each individual little, let's just call them little armor plates, are individually applied, and then I blend them in all together. You can see the top mitten there with the claws attached has already been completed, and I kind of made that just so as a reference photo for the background as I went ahead and sculpted this out. You can kind of look and see that that's the overall armor plated look that we're going for. I was able to pretty much lay them out almost the same way. They don't have to be absolutely perfect, but the overall general shape of the armor plates as they go down to the back of the hand or arm there, or mitten, I keep wanting to say mitten here, they look very similar. So just blending out each individual one. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, a lot of these little mittens will have a lot of texture anyways, and the skin would not be completely smooth as it is. So I'm not really too upset with it having a little bit of texture in between them or being a little bit rough, but I will still come in with a silicone tip tool, and I'll kind of blend those out just a little bit more after I use the actual curve carving tool there. Alright guys, what do you think? I think it looks pretty daggum good. So I'm going to go ahead and port those out a little bit more, and then I'll sort of slowly increase and add a little bit of texture to each side of the hand. So that way I do a wash or a dirty wash or add some red dirt to it, I have something just to apply some more texture to just by naturally applying those washes to those little cracks and scratches. So here's just a quick view of me just creating some of those little claws. I will be using this again in another video here soon, so I'll probably paint these along with those. So those other videos is going to be me making some teeth for the Pumpkin King, and they're going to be roughly the same shape, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit more jagged and curved, but generally they're going to be the same. I like that I was able to kind of introduce those into like a armature system, so it does apply a little bit of strength there. And there's just a quick highlight clip of it looking absolutely amazing on a piston. A little bit rusted out there. Looking pretty good, guys. So the next portion of this is me to actually carve out the little pockets that these little bad boys are going to slide into. Now, of course, these are baked separately, so I will probably go ahead and paint the main portion of the mole Diglett before I apply these into their permanent positions. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cut out and carve the clay around these little mittens because they've already been baked, right? So they're already hard and set up. We're just going to go ahead and expand the wrinkle and kind of roll it over a little bit and just give it a little pocket or a little home for each hand to kind of fit into. And once we kind of paint those out and shade them, and it's going to look really good. I do think that the overall mittens themselves do add a lot more moley texture to them. It's a moley. It looks like a mole. Expanding the other wrinkle there, same process. We just kind of add more clay and then we kind of just blend in the existing wrinkles. But I'm trying to leave the right hand side of that wrinkle just a little bit more rolled over so there's an indentation there. It's actually a pretty easy process. You just kind of got to imagine it and then just go for it. If you don't like something, it's just clay. You can just completely take it off and redo it. Looking pretty good here, guys. I'm really liking how the nose turns out, but I do feel like it needs a little bit of texture here. So although I have blended in, it just feels a little bit too bulbous for me. I know that's how Diglett's nose is supposed to be in the cartoon version, which we just saw in the previous videos here. But I just want to switch it up here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of texture to the nose before we can begin the process of going on to the cup topper itself. So I'll remove the little mittens here. And then we're going to go ahead and use a ball stylus tool. And I'm just kind of slowly introducing some texture into this. And I didn't really know where I was going with it. I just wanted to give it some varying differences. So I ended up just coming in from all four sides and just taking off a little bit of clay and kind of gave it little nose nostril holes. I really didn't know where I was going. So it's just kind of fun. It gave it a little bit of texture and just try to make them a little bit mirrored on both sides so they look similar to one another. And then it just made it look a little bit more like an animal or a monster instead of a little bit less cartoonish there. I don't think it looks as cartoonish as it did with the bulbous nose. Let's just say that. Applying a little bit of wrinkle there to the bottom of each individual nostril, and then we're going to go ahead and finish up the wrinkles here just by applying and smoothing and applying a little bit of wrinkle texture with some divoting tools. Before we finish up the eyes, and then we're going to do the topper. So I do also hit it with a little bit, well, I wouldn't say a little bit, quite a bit of rubbing alcohol here. I'm being very generous in a lot of ways, and it's just to kind of smooth out any pieces that are kind of jagged or just don't look like they're smoothly blended, and also removes any kind of fingerprints that my gloved hands would have left. You know I like to wear gloves when I work with clay for the most part, but not always, but most of the time. So looking pretty good. Just finishing out any little final details and striations, and then we're going to put this thing in the oven to bake. Now, I will say that one thing that I absolutely did wrong here is I actually forgot that it was in the oven while I was baking it. I think I was playing an Xbox game or something like that, and all of a sudden I jumped off the couch. Oh my goodness, I have something in the oven! And I ran over it, and it is a little bit overbaked. It is still a very firm, very, very hard, very strong item here. So don't think that me overbanking it is degrading the overall quality of the clay. It is not. The Sculpey Original really did hold up, but I'm just letting you know that it was indeed overbaked because it is a darker tone because I overbaked it. So you'll notice here in a little while when I come in and I bake the cup topper and I put it all together, yes, the bottom part of the clay is darker because it's over baked. Now I went ahead and built up an overall aluminum foil base, mixture of aluminum foil and my magnets and also some saran wrap, and that's just to give me a buffer to build up my clay for the cup topper. This is very, very simple. It's almost a little bit more advanced than the cartoon version, which is just an overall half circle there that we applied to that head. But this is going to apply the same concept. I'm going to roll it over the cup topper, which is, of course, the cup lid is a little bit larger than the one previously to this. But I'm going to roll that clay over the edges there, apply a large wrinkle to the bottom, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to apply a bunch of wrinkles going up the skin. Originally, I was thinking about making him like a Friar Tuck look, but I thought the overall wrinkle texture that I want, if I did a Friar Tuck look, it is going to look like a phallus. It was, because you have to remember that I'm still going to have to cut a straw hole into the very center of the cup top of this cup, because it's a center hole acrylic cup lid. So I'm going to have a hole in the top, and if I had made it a Friar Tuck like almost it is now, and I remove everything, if you look at it from only the wrinkled side, it looks pretty naughty. We don't want to include that into my channel. Sorry guys, you can go to a different channel to get that kind of content. So what we're going to do is we're going to blend it in, and we're going to continuously work these wrinkles all the way up to the top until we get it as perfect as we need to. Nothing super advanced here. We're just going to kind of blend in these wrinkles and these rolls of clay until we're just kind of happy with it. And then any kind of detail work will be fixed along the way with the acrylics and dry brushing and just fun colors along the way. We may even include some dirt and some dust up at the top so that it just kind of gives it some just dirty texture, as if he just popped out of his mold hole that we're going to sculpt for him in the coming videos. But it was just a fun process, and I just don't want you to think that it's super advanced or nothing. It's just something quick and simple, and it's just it brings a lot of character without really not having to work too hard. We don't really have to go above and beyond to make something extraordinarily, when sometimes the simplest design is the most quaint and the best. Alright you guys, I think this bad boy is looking absolutely spectacular. And although this is something of a quick build, it was very fun to be able to do 3 different types of Diglett. Worth every single video invested and minute invested. And there you can see right there the clay tone is different. White on top, and then of course a little bit burnt on the bottom, but it is great. Let's get some glamour shots of this bad boy. Now, I do hope y'all enjoyed the content here. I really do enjoy putting out these amazing videos for you guys. Whether you want to try to make something like this on your own, or it's just me having fun in the studio creating different Pokemon, I really am enjoying this overall series. And my daughter is able to enjoy the clay and painting some along the way as well. Definitely check out some of the other videos. If you haven't checked out the other Pokemon series, definitely go back and do so. They are listed under the dioramas. But also check out some of the other videos that we have. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next video where we're painting this bad boy.